All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Sabrina Medyanikov, publisher of the Bethany and Cedar Mill Living magazine. Here with me today, I'm so excited to introduce to you Goran. He's the owner of Independent Investment Advisors. Goran and his family live here in Cedar Mill, and I thought it would be great to just have him on and answer a few quick questions. So, Goran, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. Tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe just a little bit about when you started your business and why.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I've lived here in that community for coming up on 13 years, and I'm really excited to be part of this and get more engaged. So my investment journey kind of goes back to, well, as far as back as I remember, I've always been fascinated by capital markets and how they work, and I always had this belief that they can really help me support, and enable people I love and people I care about. And so my personal investment journey kind of goes back to the early 2000s. Prior to that, I used to work with somebody, and then I ventured out on my own. And then over the years, that sort of evolved into a family office. And then in 2017, it evolved into a professional practice, right? Where I've sort of opened it up to not just friends and family, but everybody else.
That's awesome. Well, I do have some quick questions for you that I really think the community would just love to hear you answer them. So the first question I have for you is, in the world of financial advice, what exactly is an independent investment advisor, and how would you say they differ, or how are they different?
That's a great question. So probably the most important probably the most important point of an independent advisor to understand is that we don't sell financial instruments. So we're not a broker dealer. We're not associated with a large asset investment house like JP Morgan or some of the other ones out there, right? And so our primary goal is to be the true advisor to our clients, right? So we partner with our clients. We help them define their goals. A lot of times I find that my clients don't have realistic goals of what they can get out of their investments and what does that really look like for them over a period of time. So I work with them. I help them define what those goals are. And then I partner with them on an ongoing basis to help them sort of manage those portfolios and achieve those goals, right? So in some ways, I sort of become either like a cousin if my client is a family, or a business partner if it's a small business that I'm working with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the second question I have for you is, generally speaking, when should someone work with an investment advisor
Mhm.
versus doing it by themselves?
Another great question. So let me answer that in two different ways. The first way, I think everybody should invest, right? I can't really put out any numbers out there, but there's lots of financial calculators out on the web. And if you're trying to achieve a financial goal and you're trying to just save your way towards that financial goal, that's going to be very, very difficult, right? So without that investment growth, without the compounding that comes with that, it's going to be a challenge. I mean, I would encourage the viewers to go out, find a calculator, and just see the difference between, if I was just saving in a bank account or I was investing, and see what that looks like. So I think um, everybody should invest in some shape or form, right? When someone should work with an investment advisor is when things start to get a little bit more complex, right? So let's say you've accumulated a little bit of a nest egg, and now you need to diversify, right? So it's not as simple as just buying a fund or two funds or three funds, right? Now you've got to sort of spread that around. Maybe you have some complexities. Maybe you're getting married, right? There's another person now in the picture. So as your situation sort of evolves, you should really start to look out and get some help. Investing isn't rocket science, right? But it does require an individual to understand what they're doing. It requires a certain amount of education. It requires, actually quite a bit of time. And so if you're not in a position where you have the time to spend, or you have desire to learn, then you should definitely reach out, find yourself a trusted advisor,
Mhm.
and work with them. And a lot of my clients I work with, I started with the parents, and then, or maybe I started it with one of the parents, right? And then they got married, and then the kids came along, and I'm there for the whole process, right? And what started as an individual relationship, it sort of evolves into an estate, and things like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, the third and final question I have for you is, how do you normally start working with a new client? Like what does that process look like, and what can someone expect as their first step when reaching out to you?
Yeah, good question. So the first thing I look for is the, believe it or not, there's such thing as being compatible with your advisor, right? And it actually is a big deal. So the first thing I look for when a new client approaches me is sort of a deep relationship building, just to understand if we can actually work together, right? Are you someone that has reasonable goals and objectives? Are you someone that has tendency to actually follow my advice? Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And things like that. And so, I'm a big proponent, in my ideal world, I only want to work with a very, very small number of clients, and I want to be integrated in their life, and I want to have a personal relationship with them. And I want to know, their families and their kids and what they got going on and things like that. And that's how your advisor relationship really should be. And so, we've become friends for the most part. And so that's how it starts, right? It starts with a conversation, relationship building, understanding if we're compatible, can we work together? And then it kind of goes from there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, great. And so, share with us, how can someone reach out to you if they've got more questions? I do have your website posted here, so if anyone has more questions and they want to check your website out, feel free to do that. But what's the best way that someone can reach out to you if they have any additional questions for you?
Yeah, the phone call is always the best way. I mean, obviously the company's online, and we've got all the electronic means, but it's always the conversation, right? So I would suggest, if you got questions, you're not sure, you want to know more, just pick up the phone and call me, and we can talk about it.
Sounds good. Well, awesome. Thanks again for taking the time to do this. I'm sure it's been really helpful for those listening. So enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much. You too.